Okay, there we go. So yeah, this session is called Self-Help Support Groups Medication Assisted Recovery Anonymous, or MARA. We have a speaker presenting today, and I've started recording the session already. And all today's presentations will be available for everybody at a later time. I think we'll be posting them on our YouTube channel. If you have any questions or technical problems, you can send me a note directly in the chat. If everyone could please keep themselves muted while the presenter is presenting, and unless you're called on at the end of the presentation. Actually, I think you guys can virtually raise your hand if you know how. There's a reactions tab at the bottom. Or you can just put your questions in the chat, and me and another individual will monitor the chat and ask the questions throughout the presentation. Let's see. I think if you haven't already, put your name and organization and email in the chat. At the end of this, we're going to be sending everyone an evaluation, so that your email, I think, is really important, so we can send it to your email. And yeah, that's all I have. I'm just here for the tech side of everything. And I think today we have David sharing today. No, I'm sorry, not David. Jeff, my bad.
It was so close, it sounds just like Jeff.
We have another David.
Okay, I think it's 9. Do you want me? Oh, yeah, 9 by you, 11 by me. Do you want to start, or do you want to wait a few minutes? Go for it. All right, let me see if I could screen share something just to start. It's how we usually start MARA meetings. If you didn't catch it, it's Medication Assisted Recovery Anonymous. So we usually start out our meetings with the MARA preamble. Medication Assisted Recovery Anonymous is a support group of people who believe in the value of medication as a means to recovery. We understand that our individual needs may not be the same, our backgrounds may not be the same, our futures may not be the same. However, our desire to live a safe lifestyle joins us together. Non-judgment is our code. And if you haven't seen any judgment in any of the traditional meetings, let me see. Tradition 10 in our group is supposed to stop us from some of our feelings about some of these things, which is simply MARA should be careful to voicing our opinions, for it may cause us to be resentful at those who judge us. And that could be anybody. That doesn't have to be a traditional group or anything. It just seems like a lot of people, when they first get to Medication Assisted Recovery Anonymous, that they have some resentment. They feel that they were treated wrong at other places quite often. And I'm kind of assuming that most of you know the traditional 12-step stuff or recovery stuff. But if you don't, feel free to ask me or anything. But they say that they weren't able to do the steps or be sponsored, for that matter, because they were on medication. Maybe it was methadone for opiates, maybe it was whatever. I mean, it could be a lot of things, Valium for anxiety problems, whatever it is. And they were told, the words were, you know, you're not clean, I can't do this with you. And to me, I've never been addicted to opioids or on any of that medication, but I've been going to traditional groups for a long time, and I see it left and right. And so it's saying that you have a problem, you're still on medication or whatever, and I have the solution steps, but I won't give you the solution until you get rid of the problem. So to me, it didn't make sense. And I posed the question actually in an NA group, I should just say a traditional group, about if there should be any kind of separate meetings for people on medication. And I received about 100 responses that were pretty nasty. And probably a quarter of the people knew me, and they're like, if they wanted it bad enough, they'd quit cold turkey. Well, that's why I sometimes refer to Medication Assisted Recovery Anonymous as the like a 1%er thing. Because, you know, 99 people might be able to go somewhere else, feel comfortable, not feel comfortable, you know, traditional meeting. But there's that one person that is shamed or felt shame, whether they meant to be shamed or not. They felt that way, and they don't come back. And then we hear about somebody overdosing, and too often it's somebody that could have been helped. And anyway, it's a sad thing. So just simply put a Facebook group together, and next thing you know, we saw there was a need for a website. And it was like people in Pennsylvania, I'm in Austin, Texas, but people in Pennsylvania, people in New York, people in Florida we knew that we thought the same way, that we felt the same way, but there's no way we could find each other. Like there must be somebody out there that feels the same way I do. So once we put a connector together, the website is kind of like a database of where the meetings are and things like that. And there's not a lot. You could say if there's 70 in-person meetings, I'm in Austin, Texas, in one weekend, you could get 70 traditional meetings. So to have 70 in the course of a week over the country is not a lot. If you were to look at the steps, you'd see that the first thing you notice is that there is no mention of God or higher power. I don't want anybody to think that means it's a secular group. If somebody goes to a meeting and says, you know, God really brought this to me, God put this in my life, it's the same as my mom brought this to me and my sister put this in my life. Nobody wants anybody to change their past, even if they have a big history in traditional meetings. Come in and share it. It's fine. It's great. But I've worked in a number of different places, residential, outpatient, prisons, whatever. And that's the first thing that comes up, is that they didn't like to be told that there was a requirement to go through a higher power or God. And so I thought, why should it be a requirement? You know, if you get a spiritual experience out of it, great. If you just get a better understanding of yourself and where you're going to go in life, great. You know, that's all bonus, you know. But it did help attract people that didn't like it. And I'm talking about people that really believe in God. Some people are totally, you know, religious or whatnot, and they still didn't like to be told they needed to, you know, you need to do this. So a lot of the other things were taken out of the steps that, you know, may be right, may be wrong, depending on your opinion, where you're coming from, but it doesn't say powerless. The step one is more a step of hope. It says without help, blah, blah. But we do have help because we found each other. So therefore it's a step of hope because we do have hope. The second step says something about us being, hey, do I have it right here? Says something about us being just like everybody else. A lot of times I've heard it some places, you know, we this, whether it's we alcoholics or we addicts or whatever is being used at the moment. We all do this, so we all do that. I personally don't think we all have, there's something that we all do that other people don't do. People that have never had a problem drinking too much or using drugs or even in the field for that matter. I just pretty much think we're all the same. Mara looks at time as somebody with a half a day sober is just as important as somebody with 30 years sober. Every single person is a human being and they deserve respect, and doesn't matter if they're not sober or if they have 30 years sober. We only have a desire chip, which oddly enough is right behind me. I don't know if you can read it, but it says a desire to live a safe lifestyle today. And the opposite side just says Mara. It's kind of our one chip that we give out because we don't follow time for a couple of reasons, but we don't want anybody really to look up and reverence, like, you know, oh my gosh, he's got 30 years, you know. I think just everybody wants to feel equal. And when they come to a place that they can, it's great. I mentioned the in-person meetings, but we do have about 25 Zoom meetings every week online. Today, well, Thursdays and Mondays are our biggest, where we have 5 each that day. So pretty much if you take a look at the website, you can find a meeting that you like to go to as a time that's convenient. A lot of people, when they come to their first meeting at the end of the Zoom meeting of Mara, it's, wow, I really felt the non-judgment. And I happen to believe there's power in non-judgment. And people have gotten on there and said that they've used drugs that morning. They plan on using that night, but they do have a desire to want to stop or cut down or just be safer. We're based on safe. We're based on safe and non-judgment. We're not based on abstinence. A lot of groups don't like that. And what I mean by that is, from what I can see, about 80% of the people that come to the meetings are on no other drugs or any alcohol other than whatever their doctor prescribed them to help them stay off of things. And then there's about 20% probably that are still doing things, but they really have a desire, or else they wouldn't keep coming back. So I'm glad they keep coming back. And often it's that line that says, I really felt no judgment in the group. I'll say one last thing about it, and then if you have any questions, which is that I was at a meeting, it was a traditional meeting some years back, probably 6 years ago, when I really started thinking this. And right in front of me, a person said to, I don't know if it was their sponsor or what, but I don't really think the 12 steps are for me. I'm going to go try something else. And the person who has the time in said to them, well, let me know how that works out for you. Like if like saying my way is the only way. But I thought about that. And if the person, if someone said to them, you know what, that's okay. Let me take you to a smart recovery meeting or refuge recovery or women for sobriety, whatever it is at the time. Let me help you go there. And if you go there and the person gets sober, that's awesome. You know, you've done your job. If they don't, they're going to remember that you were the one that came out of your comfort zone, and they're probably going to come back to you to try and find another solution. I just think it's a win-win situation, rather than just say something kind of sarcastic, like, let me know how that works out for you. I could keep talking, but I'd love to get any questions if you have any. I see not one. That's okay. I just like going on. We also have a Facebook group, by the way, and so many times when a new person comes on, they'll put the link in on Zoom, and they'll put the link on the side for the Facebook group, and somebody will get on and say, I just got off my first Mara meeting. I can't believe it. I love you guys so much. And I'd like to say I've heard the opposite too, so it averages out, but really it doesn't. Everybody seems to really like it after they go and they see the non-judgment. You can feel it. Sounds like you work well with other groups. Well, for the most part, we try. I've got so much stuff, it's hard to put it all into a couple of words. So we basically have a, let's see. All right, well, one is easy to answer. Do you provide any resources during meetings, or is it mainly peer support? During the meetings, because they're so far apart, I'm in Austin, somebody else might be in New York. A lot of times people offer each other their phone numbers for support. We wouldn't call them sponsors, we like mentors a little bit better. And let me just see. The support groups, on what they provide is some links sometimes to other things. Have you ever found a doctor doing this? Do you have a meeting near you? Do you know what time this meeting is going to be? That type of support stuff. Where can I find the 12 traditions and 12 steps for that matter? It's at mara-international.org. So we have, I personally don't have any problem with anything in the big book. And I do not think that we're a bunch of atheists or agnostics. It's just that everybody's varied and we don't separate people. Oh, you guys did opiates, but you guys only did alcohol, and you guys are atheists, but you guys are agnostic. I know the I guess you could say the AA book fairly well, and there's not much in there I am against. It's more the people, and I can't, put anything on any one person, but the feeling that people go away. Oh, Mara Facebook group, that's a good question. Medication Assisted Recovery Anonymous, Mara, that's the name of the group. But I guess there's probably more than one is my guess, but
Patrice had a question in the chat. Her question is, what is usually discussed? And like what specific topics are brought up?
Okay, well, topic can be brought up. Let me just see if I could possibly find the steps. It's going to show something else for a second, but maybe I can switch it. If not, I'm out of here. See, well, there's the traditions. Did you ask about the traditions or was it just the steps? Because there's the steps and there's the traditions, but there's the steps, and you could find them on the website, mara-international.org. But I do want to point out something here. Like the first part, it doesn't say, like, it says an inability to control many of our behaviors. It doesn't say powerlessness. The second one is like, we're like all human beings, but it's really the fourth one I wanted to skip down to, where we're used to saying, if you're in 12 step, used to saying, you know, searching and fearless moral inventory. But in here, it says we made a searching and fearless inventory of our strengths, weaknesses, and misconceptions. And what that means is, like, when I was in school, they told me I was a bad reader because everybody would be done in 20 minutes and I would still be on the, I would still be in the middle, and I would just shut the book because I didn't want to be embarrassed by it. So for 20 years, 25 years, I'm thinking I'm a terrible reader because all they did was focus on this. Then when I went back to school, and I thought, wait a minute, it might take you a half an hour and it takes me an hour. But when I take the hour, my reading comprehension is great. So reading is a strength. That was a weakness that I thought, but I challenged it. And it turns out it's a misconception. I actually am good at that. So schools, I think, happens a lot. Parents, it happens a lot. I'm trying to stop this from happening to my daughter. They focus on all the things she can't pass algebra and whatnot. She's starting to believe that in her head, but yet she comes home and she could play. Now she's on her 6th instrument. She just started playing harp. So they don't judge her coming home and playing 6 different instruments. They tell her she's bad at algebra and all these other things. That's what she gets stuck in her head. I think we're about up to the time that we have here. If any last questions. No? Well, check us out, mara-international.org. And the Facebook group is Medication Assisted Recovery Anonymous. And there may be more than one, but we have the logo on the top of ours. So I don't think you can see the logo if I held it up, but kind of looks like a diamond with an arrow in front of it. Anyway, if that's all the questions, I would let the next person go instead of continue to go. Jessica, is that about it?
I think you're only presenter for our 9 a.m. one on Mara. So we can either, anyone can chime in on their opinions on Mara or their experiences if you'd like. I can also share the schedule, and you are more than welcome to, on the link that I'm sharing in the chat, it'll bring up the whole schedule for the day, so anyone can join any other sessions that they might be interested that are going on right now or later on. But yeah, otherwise, that's, I think you're the only one, Jeff.
Okay, I thought there was somebody after 15 minutes. They said you only have 10 minutes to talk and then answer a few questions. I tried to squeeze it all in as quickly as I could, but I don't know if there's anyone else. You're saying that there is nobody else right now?
Yeah, some presenters end up not making it sometimes, or, you know, something comes up a lot, so
These
yeah.
are weird times we're in these last couple of years too. You never know what's going to happen. But everybody that's here, since there were 5 different options, if you're here, I think we have something, we're all looking at something having to do with medication and recovery. At least that's what I think we're here. We had 4 other choices and we took this one. But a lot of people do, whether it's meant to be shameful or not, some people take it that way. And I used to work in a treatment center, and we looked, and this one person named Jamie, he had died of an overdose. And he tried to get into the place so many times. There were just different reasons why he couldn't make it. And what it came down to really, and I don't know this, but if there were a group that he could talk in while he was still using, I think it would have been beneficial to him. Back in my day, so to speak, as a teenager, every time I did something, especially what some people might call harder drugs, I couldn't do it around my friends. It had to be a secret. Of course, I couldn't tell my family. But imagine if there were a group that I could get on that was not abstinence-based, yet it did have solution in there, and it has people who have the experience in there. But I could say like, man, I used this morning, I used last night, I felt so terrible when I woke up that I had, use it, but I really want to stop. Like, I really want to. These are the kind of things I couldn't tell anybody. It was just in my mind. And it took me personally quite a while, about 32 institutions later. And I started thinking about, well, maybe I am a little safer if I stay away from things. But it's just nice. Oh, somebody put it up, Jessica, thank you. It's just nice when people come to the meeting and feel something different. Something was stopping them the whole time from coming to meeting. They went to traditional meetings for a while, or it doesn't even have to be traditional. It could be any kind of meeting. Went to friend for help, went to therapy, whatever it is. But when they find a group of people that are non-judgmental, it just really seems to mean a lot to people. And it means a lot to me as well. One, that they come, and two, that there is a place. I just clicked something because, oh, okay, there's a link there for, okay, well, it's just a weird view, I guess, because of, it was a link to the Facebook group. I thought maybe it was the wrong one or something, but that's because I have a different view, you might say. Let's see, I agree, guilt, oops, something popped up on my screen. Shame never works for growth. Well, guilt and shame doesn't seem to work for growth, I see a couple of hands up. I don't know who put it up first, but I see Susan and I see Sue.
Susan was first.
Okay.
That's okay. I just wanted to say that I'm really grateful that these meetings are existing and popping up, and I copied the link. I know that this medically assisted treatment, when people, I am come from a background of AA, and one of the things that long timers in AA, I think, subscribe to is, we did it this way and that's how we know it works, and don't rock our boat. And anybody coming into the arena of doing something different, I think rocks their boat. And so I did not, we have a recovery center that is, we are in the same office with, and I already texted my partner and I said, we got to start one of these meetings. We have the necessity so badly. I have a person that had a son that was getting medically assisted treatment and was unable to find a home to go into to receive that treatment. And of course, went back out, and a sobriety home. And had he had this support, two things could have happened. People talk, right? I mean, in AA, the community of networking is incredible. And I say we're the biggest underground gang in the world because there's so many different people with so much knowledge in there. And so thank you for presenting this. And we will be connecting people to this online group, as well as hopefully starting our group, hopefully starting a group in Anaheim, California. So grateful.
Great.
Okay.
I was in Anaheim about a month and a half ago.
What? Don't tell me you went to Disneyland.
We did one day.
Ah. All right. I mean, that's what people do here. All right. Thanks.
Sue?
Thank you, Jeff. Move, there's two of us in the room.
What?
But thank you so much. I wish that I knew about this group when I was on medically assisted treatment. I've already looked at the website, and there's so much valuable information there. And with what you've provided us, now I'm able to help my peers that are, because, I stopped going to 12-step programs because it was frowned upon. They say, it's picking up one and exchanging it for the other. And so for 2 years, my recovery was just, abstinence. I didn't work on anything. I took the medication that's prescribed, and to have this group is amazing. I would look into starting a meeting, because I see that there's some meetings, but we can do so much better and expand that, to eventually being worldwide if it's not already. I just glanced at it, but I just wanted to share that, what you've said is so valuable. I don't have to be ashamed. I don't have to feel guilty, because that's what I needed to help me through, to get off the drugs that I was taking at the time. So I just wanted to thank you for your information, and I would definitely pass the information along. Thank you.
Thank you. And I offer every group that I know about that just starts, I offer if they wanted to like put me in on Zoom or even a phone call just for that first meeting to kind of explain a little bit about Mara, and then kind of just go from there. And, of course, I'd give you my phone number and whatnot if you needed to get back to us. But I've been around traditional meetings my whole life. My first meeting was in 1979. And my sister has been totally sober in AA. She still goes to meetings since 1975. So I was only like 11, but I just kept hearing these things and dropping her at churches. And I thought it was some cult, and later on, certainly not that it's a cult, but it is a certain belief system that I think works for so many. But there's that 1% that fall through the cracks. And it's that 1% that I feel like I want to help.
Jeff, it looks like Dr. G in the chat, he asked a really good question. His question was, how do the members deal with controversy between prolonged MAT over a few years versus short terms, like a few weeks or a month?
Well, as far as the members in the group go, it's like kind of an unwritten thing that we don't ask anybody else about their medication, their time in medication or whatnot. If somebody's on it for the rest of their life or feels that they are, it's fine. If somebody's on it for 3 months because they feel like they needed a little something in between, that's fine too. We have people on there that have never been on medication or drugs for that matter. There's one woman, she signs in as mother of something. But I thought, well, must be a mom of like somebody who has an issue. And I talked to her straight up and said, hey, we'd love to hear your story. And she said, oh, my son is only 2. he has some problems, and I am getting a lot of support from these groups for dealing with his problems. He had autism in his case. I think he's like 4 now. So she's been coming around for 2 years. And just so you know, Mara is about 4 years old, I guess you could say, in theory, and then things started getting put on paper very soon after that.
I think Sunny, I see Sunny's hand up.
I'm sorry, guy, I can't see very well on here.
Okay,
Someone
I got
had their
you.
hand up. Okay.
Hi, Jeff. Hi there, Jeff.
Hi.
Hi, everybody. My name is Sunny, and I hail from Sacramento, California, NAMI, Sacramento. And I really appreciate you coming and sharing. And I like to play devil's advocate for some time. So my question was about atheism versus agnosticism.
Oh.
And so I appreciate your response. And I was hoping for something like that. Anyway, I digress. I came into recovery and I was on, I started seeing a therapist and a psychiatrist about a year into recovery when I initially got sober back in 1991. And, I too would have benefited from a program like this. And I too am very interested in bringing this program to Sacramento if it's not already here, because I too experienced the judgment and the stigma of not necessarily being on a quote unquote, this is prescribed medication that I was on, and I needed it for my mental wellness so that I could stay sober. But the message I was getting was, well, you're not clean and sober because X, Y, and Z. And so I learned not to talk about it. And I struggled and I suffered in AA, and I eventually drank again. One, because I'm an alcoholic, and because I felt ostracized. So I'm really grateful again that this is here for us, and for everybody and anybody. And I'm grateful that you mentioned other programs like recovery, refuge recovery, smart recovery, celebration. It's all necessary because there are so many of us. So thanks, everyone. Peace.
When someone uses the word clean, by the way, I usually say, well, I was never dirty. We call it an illness, we call it allergy. Hell, I was sick as heck, man. I was very unhealthy, but I'm becoming healthy. I'm open-minded, and I'm looking at things. And don't get any wrong impressions. I don't hate any traditional groups. It saved my life, and I would still recommend them in certain cases, especially when somebody needs a quick support group. I came out of prison actually, and before you know it, I had 100 phone numbers of people. And I don't know that I can get that anywhere but a traditional meeting, or in this case was AA. But after a while, I felt that there were other issues going on and they needed this, so that you find people in your program who maintain long-term abstinence. Yes, there are people we've only been around 4 years, but there are people that attend the meetings that have 16 years or 18 years. And, I'm just guessing, but I can think of a few in other traditional programs, and they don't tell anybody about their medication. And they're finally glad that they can speak openly about it. I don't know if I answered the question right.
I think Patrice had his hand up.
Okay, go for it. I can't see.
Yeah, I was typing at the same time. Thanks, Jeff. That's great information. I'm Patrice. I'm with NAMI San Mateo, but I have a question. So I understand the need and who is the main audience or participant to that specific group, which is great. I'm wondering if you had participants that are questioning or struggling just with accepting and taking their medication for mental health conditions, whether it's schizophrenia, bipolar, depression. So not a substance use history or challenges with that, but just around the questioning of the medication, accepting and sharing with others, or that should be just a different group, or it can be handled like I've seen in depression support groups or bipolar disorder specific groups.
Well, I don't know if I caught you right, but there are some people that don't feel like they should take their medication. They feel fine, but then when they get off their medication, they have some kind of negative result or bad result, or if it's not the right time. Certainly, if somebody comes up with this, I always anyway, suggest that they talk to their doctor, that none of us are doctors. Even though I had this experience, you might have a different experience. I don't know, I'm not a doctor. And we go back in that direction. I'd love to have your number and email address for future reference. Oh, someone just wants my phone number.
I was gonna say, a couple of people asked for your contact info in the chat. And Dr. G, he had a she had a follow-up question about the controversy. So they originally asked the question about what was it? Sorry. The controversy between prolonged MAT over the years and shorter terms. And they wanted to know if like the topic is brought up in meetings. If I got that right, correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. G, but that's what the question sounded like.
If the topic is brought up about medication, you mean?
The controversy.
Well, I would just say that people that go to the meetings are mostly on the same page as far as controversy. That's kind of what gets them there. they felt the controversy in another group and they tried to find something. And when they found Mara, they seemed to lose the controversy. About 4 years ago, I did as much research as I could. If there's got to be a group like this out there, you know, and there was a Methadone Anonymous, and there's a couple of different things, but they all but disappeared. Maybe there's a meeting somewhere, but they all pretty much disappeared from the same thing. And I call it wolves in sheep's clothing, which is that a member of a traditional group, and we have members, don't get me wrong, we have members of traditional groups that have been there for a few years that are great, that always know where that line is. But members of traditional groups, oh, I'm compassionate, I'll help, let me chair a meeting, let me host. And then about 4 months later, well, don't you think it's about time to get off your medication now? And the thinking came in, and the first things first, and the one day at a time. I mean, I'm around a long time. I am likely to say something like one day at a time, or, you know, first things first. I'm likely to say it. But to have the whole thinking process get into the meetings, I don't know how healthy that is. It actually scares some people because they've had their descriptions to me sounds like they actually have some type of a PTSD from some of the meetings. So when someone asks, like, what can we find a topic from? Well, there's a few good meetings out there. Well, what about this book or that book from a traditional meeting? I said, well, I wouldn't suggest that, because as soon as someone walks in and sees it, everybody else might not have a problem, but it's the one person that sees it that we know had a bad issue, turns around and walks out the door. That's what the thing is here for. It's not really for everybody, you might say. It's for that person that really needs it, the person that has nowhere else to go, that type of thing. I'm trying to read these things, but well, anyway, my phone number is on there. I appreciate if you text first. So if I'm in the middle of something, I won't feel like, oh no, I just missed an important call. We have some meetings that are called hybrid meetings they're online. They're like Zoom meetings, except that they're also like being taught somewhere. Like there's a group of people, like 8 or 9 people in a classroom, but they also have a computer there and another 10 people and join them from Zoom. So I call it a hybrid because we have some Zoom and we have some in person. And I often suggest that people start with that so they'll have the support of the Zoom meeting, a bunch of people who have already been doing this for a little while.
I think Bethany, it's not a question, but she had a comment. She said, it seems that Mara has a strong harm reduction approach at its roots. So glad to see this low barrier judgment-free meeting as something that's being offered to PWUD. Our harm reduction organization is going to start hosting a Mara meeting as soon as possible.
Oh, thank you. That sounds good. I see it right as you're reading it. Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, it definitely has a lot of harm reduction approach, no doubt. Yeah. If we're coming to a closing, I will read the closing and you can see what it's like. But even if we're not coming to a closing, I'll read it because we might get shut off automatically. Who knows? But at the end of each meeting, if it was a Zoom meeting, we usually unmute. It's kind of like a non-traditional tradition. We unmute and we screen share the meeting closing and everybody reads it together and we make a big mess because we can't possibly say it all together. And if somebody has an in-person meeting, I suggest that they have like maybe 1 copy of everything, but the closing should have about 10 copies of, because if you've been to regular meetings or traditional meetings, someone says, whose father? We all know what to say next. But the first word here is today. So if somebody says today, nobody knows what the heck to say next. So I'll just read it real quick. Usually have a bunch of people saying, today we share a common desire. We desire to live safely, regardless of where we are in our journey. We encourage each other to continue. Many of us have seen the reward of trust reappearing in our lives. We value the trust of others. Each day we keep in mind the importance of not interfering with the progress of another person. Additionally, let's not interfere with our own progress. And that's how we usually close each meeting.
I think Kevin, his mic's not working, but he wanted to join the discussion, but he had a comment and he you just said. I believe that at the core of self-help or peer work is the need to have the ability to see things as they are and the grace to simply let them be.
I agree with that. Yeah, and take people as they are and meet them where they're at. Yeah. I had this conversation with somebody the other day, and it was just kind of a realization that they asked if I would do something, which is a service commitment, you might say. And I say, well, I do my service, but I don't do it like the way you might want me to. Like I used to go to a lot of hospitals, institutions, prisons, and all that stuff. But these days I help people. I do volunteer work, but totally differently. It has nothing to do with drugs and alcohol or recovery or any of that. But I feel like I can do service work or help people, but it doesn't have to be the way that we might want it or the way that I might have a history of it. I could just go out there. There's plenty of places that want people to volunteer and help somebody. So it doesn't just have to be my way or the highway. It could be like, I'm taking this design for living and I'm taking it out to the world. And in this case, I'm volunteering to do something. And, you know, somebody asks for help, you help them if you can.
I see Crystal's hand up.
Okay. Crystal? You got your headphones on now? I can't hear too well. Can anybody else?
Can you hear me?
I didn't hear anything except at the end there.
Is it my headphones? Can I hear you now?
I can hear you now, yes.
Okay. Sorry, I didn't know that my headphones would work with my microphone, but I wanted to say that I really appreciate this conference because I have a friend that works at the hospital in our county, and that's what she does. She helps connect people to medicated system of treatment. And I know that she would love to have this resource to give to them because in the field that I'm in, I see a lot of clients that come through and have those issues, feeling the stigma or even having it themselves, not being able to accept that, you know, they haven't just traded one drug for another, that they're actually helping themselves by doing this. Right? And so, having this information to give out is really appreciated.
Good, thank you. No more questions. You want me to just keep talking?
If you have more information to offer, that's all up to you, Jeff.
Okay. Well, I mean, we do have the steps and the traditions. And for instance, step 7 in trying to think of differences, but in traditional meetings that I've seen anyway, they, you know, pass out a basket and say, we, you know, according to 7 tradition, fully self-supporting. In our step 7, and I'm just paraphrasing, it's not in front of me, but it says something like, we aim to be fully self-supporting. So it has nothing to do with money. We've never accepted money. I personally haven't accepted any money. But if a place is willing to give us an hour of a room for free, we'll take it. If somebody that's on medication cannot host a meeting, they're not sure how, but yet a counselor or a peer recovery coach can, or somebody else can, do it, go for it. You know, we'll take the help right now because maybe there's somebody sitting in the meeting that just will catch on fire, who knows? But we would have never known that if we didn't have somebody doing a meeting, regardless of whether they were have this history or not. So I think when we say we aim to be fully self-supporting, we're talking about that. I always tell people if they happen to collect anything at any of their meetings to put it right back into their own meeting, whether they buy candy or coffee or cookies, soda, whatever, you know how it is. But I'll tell you what, it's not easy. In Austin, Texas, we had a meeting and we got 3 pizzas every week. And we figured, okay, it's at a MAT clinic. It's 3 pizzas every week. There's people that are going to want to be here. The most we had was 6, and it would go down 4, usually 3, 4, that kind of thing. So I can't say I know the trick to have a full meeting. I do know that meetings seem to do better when there's some type of a clubhouse. Over here, there's a clubhouse where there's like an AA meeting at one time, an NA meeting at another time, and an HA meeting, and a CMA meeting, and a CA meeting, if you know what any of those are. They're all in like the same building. And if you hung up a flyer that said Medication Assisted Recovery Anonymous, a lot of people would just poof at it. But there's that one guy that's been hiding the medication the whole time. And he says, maybe I should try that, you know. Those meetings seem to do pretty well. There's a couple more, but mostly I don't know the secret of how to have a good one, except that online are pretty good meetings. If you planned on doing an in-person one, I certainly suggest that you go online for a few Zoom meetings and just see how they go. Because like anywhere else, they're a little different. At Thursday, there's one point during the day where a guy actually teaches a mat class, but he does the readings of Myra beforehand. I've known him for a couple of years through online, and he never seems to break anything. But if you went on that, break what we do. But if you went on that for your first meeting, somebody might be like, oh, wait a minute, is this a mat class? Am I in like a classroom or something? But that's the only one I know that does that. And the other ones are mostly like topics or people at home. Occasionally there are hybrids where you can like see in your camera, there's about 8 people in the background, things like that. So I certainly would try a couple of different meetings to see how it goes. And I think you'll see a lot of joy. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. And don't get me wrong, if somebody comes to Mara and it's unable to help them, they don't feel right, whatever it is, I let them know, not just me, but other people, anything can help them. Just don't give up. If AA and NA and whatnot didn't try for you, try Smart Recovery, try Refuge Recovery, try Life Ring, there's just so many things out there, just try something that would work. I know the thinking is that, or I should say the $1 billion thinking is that one method's worked for a long time. And I'm sure it has. And like I said, I'm sure I'll keep referring people to the other methods in certain situations. But each method, whether it's SMART or one of the other ones, it has people it can touch where the other one didn't have anyone it could touch. And I think that's what we get a lot of, is people that just couldn't find a place to be, to feel like they belonged. So. All right, I'll keep going about whatever steps are different. I talked about step 4. Step 8 is another one that's different. It's not just people we have harmed. It's made a list of people we have harmed, people who have harmed us, and how we reacted to the way they've harmed us. And so if someone calls me fat or stupid or ugly or whatever, I don't really care. It's like, how did I react to it? I didn't care, But if someone calls me stupid or, you can't add 2 + 2 or whatever, but they go in the direction of insulting intelligence, that might pee me off. And I'll know by looking, this is the list of people who have harmed me, and this is how I reacted. Well, damn, I never reacted to anybody that told me I was ugly or stupid, but when they told me this, I seem to have a bad reaction. I go home, I mentioned something to my wife, or I don't want to say I kick my dog, but that's an old saying, kick the dog. No, I love my dogs. I would never kick my dogs. They sleep in bed with me. They're great. But so I know how I'm reacting. We didn't go through all the steps, but all of a sudden somebody does that to me. Say, oh, what are you, stupid or something? What's wrong with you? We've already gone through the steps to step 8. In step 7, where it does start out with humbly, just like traditional steps, but it gives us an opportunity to be humble. So when somebody says something to me that I know my history is to react in a bad way, I know they say actions speak louder than words, but I think reactions speak louder than that, then it gives me an opportunity to say, oh, I have a history of reacting to this. Let me go back to step 7. This is an opportunity to be humble. And if I am humble, if I can manage to do it, I probably won't hurt anybody's feelings. I probably won't have to go back and make an amends, things like that. So it's not like on day 1 I can do it, but after a while I can do it better and better. Well, I should have prepared myself for an hour presentation. I'm sorry, guys. They told me 10 minutes. I was like, what can I shove in there in 10 minutes?
Well, I can ask you another question. Since we have some time, I can burn some for you.
Go for it.
So when you said that there was about 75 meetings a week over, is that true?
All right, in person, on Zoom meetings, there's about 25 meetings on Zoom a week. In person meetings, it was 70 just prior to COVID, and this is across the country, so it's not really a lot. One state might have one meeting, that type of thing. But when COVID hit, I waited a little while and I called around to try to find out if we could see what the meeting. And I remember talking to somebody in Arizona and they said, oh yeah, we met again. And then we were told we can't meet anymore. So now I'm just trying to like wait for everything to die down. And just when I think like COVID is going away, a new variant comes up and it's all over the place. And so I really don't know. All I can guess is that it's probably about the same, which is 70, because a lot of people stopped doing the COVID, or some people had a problem with attendance, but we've also been getting a lot of interest in the website. People almost every day asking how they start a meeting, and they'd like to start one here. And so I would think it's about the same. I can tell you that through the website anyway, whether they follow through or not, I don't know, but through the website, it shows that we're going to blast right past that 70 meeting thing. People are writing every day asking about it, which if you've never heard of it, it might be because I've never done outreach or called any treatment centers or anything like that. Every once in a while, somebody notices and they ask about it.
How many participants would you say join the meeting, are in these Zoom meetings? Are you talking 3 to 5?
No, I'd say the average is about 12. There are some, we had one meeting with 60 people, and I think that was a rarity. But I have had meetings low down to like 4 and whatever, 6. But generally there, I'd say between like 12 and 22, like somewhere in that range. And also the good thing about the Facebook group is there's technical problems everywhere. So if somebody can't get on their Zoom that's supposed to be doing a meeting, or an issue comes up, or someone got COVID in their house, whatever it is, and the meeting is not canceled, it's canceled, but people aren't aware that it's canceled. Sometimes somebody will get on the Facebook group and say, hey, the 7 o'clock meeting didn't happen. At 8 o'clock, if anybody would like to have a pop-up meeting, they call them pop-up meetings, here's the link. And then when 8 o'clock comes around, if they click onto that link, they'll be in meeting. The meeting was not on the website. You couldn't find it on the list, but somebody decided, since we missed that one, let's pop up and do another one. And so that we get a bunch of pop-up meetings, almost one a day.
Okay. And so do you host any of these meetings?
I'd host if people don't show, I might. Last year I hosted a step meeting because people wanted to know about doing the steps. I had a little issue with that I don't think I want to get into, but every time I said something, it ended up on somebody else's website, put it that way. And it had nothing to do with Mara. It just ended up on their website. And I was like, oh, maybe I should limit how much I, put on here or say.
Welcome to the press.
Yeah, at least for a little while,
Okay.
But you know what's another thing, and it just passed, so it doesn't matter if you remember it 11 months from now, whatever. But the last 2 years we had, we call them marathons, but MARA-thon, get it, marathon. Anyway, at Christmas time, and both times we had a 26-hour meeting, and so we had people committing to every 2 hours, and sometimes they would split it with somebody, but they just kept passing people as hosts. You're the host into the next hour, you're the host the next hour. And it was really good. At this time around 2, 3 in the morning, there were people on there. There were 4 or 5 people on there that were, I don't know what else they would have been doing on Christmas night, but they were in a safe place.
Nice. So if we were interested, if I was interested, and I am, into getting an online meeting started, is that something that you can help us navigate, start, maybe attend the first 4 meetings so we can create leadership in our area, or how do you start that?
I'll attend any meeting for sure. Let me just see if I can put the Typing.
I took
bad
your
on this
number
thing.
down.
Oh, okay, good.
We have a pretty large community center and a pretty large MAT population. And so I think that would be pretty, I keep saying pretty, I think that would be great in order to start that. And I'm in California, Orange County,
Mm.
and you will be repeated, what they say is if you don't want to repeat it, don't say it, but
Right.
you got to say it
That's
anyway.
okay.
Yeah, yeah.
I put an email down there, info@myra-international.org. If anybody's thinking about a meeting or has questions, that's a good place to go.
Okay, I'm sending that to myself. Thank you. I really, I think this is absolutely needed and would be really supportive to our community for sure.
I think it's needed as well, but sometimes people get, I don't know, a little shocked or whatever when I say something like it's not abstinence based. Like there are people on there for different reasons and people use different medications. I don't know too many programs that would accept, I don't know. I've come across a bunch of people that use marijuana as their source of recovery. I couldn't do it myself, but I don't think they'd be accepted at a whole lot of places as being in recovery. But yet we accept anything. So if it works out for them, great. If they can hold a great life and be safer by using that and not, I don't know, doing something what we might call hardcore, that's great. But when people hear that it's not abstinence based, sometimes other meetings just kind of say it's, it's not good or whatever.
But I think that's just about language, right? And we have treatment centers that are definitely not MAT, right? No, you cannot come here and be on MAT. You can't be a MAT client and live in this sober living. But it doesn't mean that MAT is wrong. It just means you're not a candidate for that home, right? And so it's the same. If you cannot buy into that abstinence, it's not an abstinence-based recovery center, then maybe this meeting isn't something that will be good for you. Right. And that's the challenge here is that we have NA, MA, NA, OA, BA, GA.
There's 100 of them. So.
Exactly. And so maybe we just need to express that if that isn't something that you like or can buy into, it is not this program, right? It's not
Right.
this meeting. And
Right.
And so what, right? I think starting a meeting for MAT, that's exactly what it is. If you are MAT, medically assisted treatment, this is a program that will welcome you, period. I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir here, and so I'll shut up, but
No, it's always good to hear again,
I'm with you, Jeff. I'm in long-term recovery with AA, right? I grew up in AA and for a long time believed that abstinence was it because that was the way that I had to create my life. But I now understand it isn't the way everybody else creates their life. So.
Right. And abstinence can be it for a lot of people, but they might take a different route to get there than,
Sure.
One of us has in the past. So that's something I need to be open to. I know all the little wonderful ideas I have, I could be wrong on any of them. So I don't really push and say, well, no, it's like this. I don't know. I think it is, but I've been wrong plenty of times. So I could be wrong this time. That kind of
Join
thing.
the club.
Yeah.
Jeff, do you have time for one more question? I think
Sure
Dr.
do.
Lee wanted to know what.
Yeah, I just saw that about what do they usually bring up about medications? Is that it? Is that the one, Jessica?
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, sorry. Usually people just try to bring up, have you had this experience? Like they got cut off with funding. Of course, people talk about going down and getting off, and they don't say you shouldn't or or you should. What they say is what makes you feel that way. And a lot of times it's guilt of people saying you really shouldn't be on anything. You're not clean. You're not this. And so they have this built up guilt in them that they need to get off of it. And maybe they will eventually, maybe after a few months, a few years, or maybe never. But that comes up a lot, that they feel a guilt that they should, that why should I be on this? Other people do it without it. Why can't I, kind of thing. I don't know if that helped or not. But.
So I think the session finishes at 10 o'clock. So if anyone has any last minute questions, or if you haven't, I think Jeff's contact info, he put his number in the chat. If anyone has any more questions they want to ask him outside of this. But thank you, Jeff. You are wonderful. I love the topic of Mara. It's super important, and I'm a huge advocate of it because of the stigma. So I really, really, really appreciate what you do. And out here in
Hey,
LA.
can I add something about the stigma?
Yeah, for sure.
My wife knows nothing about alcohol, drug problems, whatever. She has a drink every once in a while, and I've never seen her have more than one. When I first met her some years back, I had to tell her that I was in, well, at that time, like I was in AA, and I had to explain, what's that? I think I've heard that. Like, she didn't even know what it was, right? So I explained that basically I had a problem and I'm doing something about it. So she said, oh, that's great. You know, I'm glad you're doing something about it. But we've talked later, and if I would have told her like I was on methadone or I was on Suboxone, and she'd be like, oh, you had a problem and you're doing something about it. That's great. Like, she wouldn't see it as any different. It seems like the people that see it as different are saying you can only do it our way. Our way is the only way that works. She didn't know anything about recovery, and both of them looked the same to her. Oh, you had a problem and you're doing something about it. And I just see that a lot. I feel like that's where the stigma comes from. It doesn't come from people like my wife who knew nothing about it. So that's all.
That's such a good point. I've never heard that before. So it's so true. It comes from seems to come from people within other programs, so that's interesting. All right, so thank you everyone for attending. I really loved this session. I'm gonna post up the schedule on my screen, and I think the next session within this room is at 10:15, and it's we are covering Recovery International, but I'm also going to share the link again just in case it's too far in the chat for everybody. If you want to look at the rest of our schedule within other rooms, we have a bunch of different sessions going on today. So yeah, thank you everyone for being here, and thank you so much, Jeff. You did great. You're
Thanks
wonderful
for having me, and I really appreciate everybody showing up.